I remember a particularly bad week where work really slowed down. Not a lot on, your mind starts racing. And I looked up at my shelf here and all the business books that I'd read over the years. And I remember saying to my wife that I wanted to throw all of them in the bin because none of it worked. I'd read about these people who'd done amazing things in business, built the systems, master sellers, hired the perfect people, got all the money and their freedom. And I'd consumed so much of it. And yet I was still sitting there thinking and worrying about where my next client was going to come from, how my business had dropped off significantly and what that meant for the next month and the next month. So I decided that none of this actually works. Because if it did, I wouldn't be feeling this way. I wouldn't be worrying about like $3,000 drop off of my business this month. And once things calmed down, of course, I realized it wasn't true. But it made me notice or think about a pattern about how I'd been consuming these books. And really, I'd rarely reached for these things when everything was going good and I was in a flow and work was coming in and my days were filled with, work and money was good. I'd reach for them when something had gone wrong, particularly when things had gone quiet, because I find they are the toughest moments when you work for yourself. When my income might drop from 8K a month to 5K a month. So I'd be checking my emails more, trying to force something to happen, wondering about where the next client was going to come from. And that's the moment of panic. And that's when somebody who's made millions and done it all appears on your feed telling you that you should hire people who are better than you, or you should invest more or work on your mindset. Change your business in a very particular way to improve it. And I just found that really hard advice to hear clearly when you're in crisis mode and you're thinking about having to support your family, feed your kids, pay your mortgage. Like in that moment, I don't need to visualize 5 years from now. I'm in a crisis, so I need to change something today. And that's why books are kind of so appealing in that sense, and online content about business. So then you're searching for more content, the right book to tell you the right thing about how you can higher your prices or build better systems or create a more resilient mindset. And because you're already stressed out, there's so many of these options, but they all feel so urgent because action feels like the only thing to do right now. It's way more difficult to sit in the discomfort. So you've got to take some action, but there's just so many options. So I don't know if anybody else does this, but I do it all the time. But have you ever panic ordered at a restaurant? So you arrive, sit down, get a big menu, and you're interested in various different things, but you haven't fully decided. And then the waiter appears before you expected. And suddenly you're just in a bit of a frenzy. Like you haven't quite decided, but you feel the need to satisfy the fact that the waiter is there waiting to take your order. And you pick something, and it's a thing that you never really wanted in the first place. And almost straight away, you're disappointed for a meal that hasn't even arrived yet. And I think that's what implemented business advice in a crisis can feel like, or in a crisis in your mind. Your income has dropped, your mind is racing, and there's 20 strategies in front of you, and you just panic choose one. Now that's not and never will be strategy. It's a frightened brain looking for relief. But here's what I actually wanted, or what I think I wanted when I started to feel the need to throw those business books in the bin. I wanted them to remove uncertainty, and I wanted a straight line. So read the book, do the thing, watch the business grow. But the reality is that's never happened for anyone, ever. Like every version of it is a compound effect over a long period of time. That's how everything has progressed for me. There's not one thing that I've learned from a book or a video that I've implemented and it's like made a clear difference. It's things you learn and subtly implement in the background. And most of the time, it just looks like nothing happening at all. That's why most business advice leaves it out. It won't talk about the idea before it actually worked. So someone's built a business and sold it for millions. They can explain why hiring was the obvious move or the change they made to an offer that completely accelerated everything. Now, this doesn't mean that these things are wrong or that they don't work, but it just means more so that it's their business and their life, and they're at a completely different stage to yours. You've probably done a version of this yourself. You paid for the course, you hired the person, bought the tool that was supposed to change everything. And the first thing that happens is not relief, in my experience. It's a smaller bank balance and more work. So that was hiring for me, something I resisted for a long time, but I heard about so much. I felt I needed to do it. I paid somebody like $300-400 a month and then spent my time explaining the work, checking what came back, chasing it. So I was down money and I had none of my time back. So if the question was, will this immediately take my business to the next level? In this instance, the answer was very clearly no. But hiring hadn't necessarily failed. I just expected it to work immediately. And the more I think about it, I've done this with lots of pieces of big advice that I've read or consumed on videos or podcasts. You try the visible part once and expect the biggest possible return. And when it doesn't land, you then decide it doesn't work. And the real shift for me was learning to notice the state I was in before reaching for more advice. So if work's dropped off and I'm worried and in a bit of a panic, in that state, I'm not looking to learn anything. I'm looking to try and help the feeling go away. And that's changed how I go into books now or any piece of business content advice. I go in assuming there'll probably be one or two useful things I can take away. So generally small things I can repeat without rebuilding my entire business around them. That's how it's always worked. I can't think of one big thing that I've implemented that has changed my business in a vastly significant way. It's been learning all these bits and pieces that you'll take elements from and put in place kind of subtly in the background, because that's the only realistic way. Because the truth is, there's never going to be a straight line. There's only ever going to be small things repeated and for longer than feels reasonable. And that's the part that nobody puts in a book.